Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to the last session of the day. We have a great topic for you. We have RTP, greed or necessity. So this has been, I think, one of the most talked about topics for quite some time. I know that the chat is going crazy and everybody's looking forward to us getting involved. So before, I guess, we dive in, it would be really good to get a quick intro from our panel and just brief introduction to yourselves, and then we'll take it from there. So, Phil, sorry.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, sorry.
Phil Pearson, Head of Sales and White Labels at iGaming Group, and that's it.
That's it. Now, in one word, greed or necessity?
Both.
No, Phil, one word.
Necessity.
Necessity. Okay. Oh, I didn't think I'd get that from you. Over to you, Ciara.
Good afternoon and happy Friday, everybody. My name is Ciara and I am the Commercial Director for Gaming at Betsson.
In one word, greed or necessity?
Blanket greed.
Blanket greed. Oh, wow. Interesting. That is controversial. And over to you, Magnus.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Magnus Olsson and I do sales and account management at Play and Go.
And then Magnus, in one word, greed or necessity?
I'll go for necessity.
You'll go for the necessity. Okay, so we have 2-1 at the moment. Okay, so I mean, guys, obviously we kind of came up with this topic through all of us just chatting and on LinkedIn and things like that. We all know each other kind of through the industry. And obviously there's been a number of kind of major operators who have made the decision to kind of change their RTP on games. There's obviously a number of suppliers that have consistently had varying RTP. I think IGT have had about 3 different RTPs for about 10 years. So this isn't anything new. But I think what spurred us on to have this topic was really looking into whether it is being done in the right way, how it's come about that we need to have varying RTP, and ultimately the right way that people should approach this so that the player still feels safe and valued. So I guess I think a good way of diving into this is looking at the background. So, Ciara, how do you think the involvement of our industry and the growth of our industry has ultimately affected RTPs across the board?
Yeah, I guess it's always a really interesting question. Our industry is maturing in many ways and people have more access and understanding of data than they ever did before. We're much closer to our customers in many ways, whether it's through enhanced customer research or really digging down, trying to understand that data. You know, when we look at regulated markets and increased taxes, I can understand why operators out there are looking to decrease their RTP. There are operators, increasing the RTP as well, making sure that they can use that to stand out as a USP to their customers.
Absolutely.
And I think, I didn't mean blanket greed. I meant if you blanket drop the RTP across all of your games, then that is greed if you don't start to look into the data and try and understand what's happening and the impact that has on the players. I think, for me, as the industry evolves and we build more volatile games, for example, and we've spoken about that a lot, then the customer experience changes as well. And I think one of the things that people are doing is they're making rash decisions as the industry drops RTPs. First of all, it's not everybody in the industry doing that, but they're also doing it without understanding the impact of dropping those RTPs. So are you doing it by decreasing the maximum win? Are you doing it by decreasing the bonus hit frequency? Are you doing it by, playing with the actual volatility of the game? And I think each of those changes and how they impact the customer experience is really important to understand.
Absolutely. And I don't think any of us is saying here that there's a bog standard, you have to do this or you have to do that, but it's looking into what are we portraying to customers? Are we being transparent? Is it easy for them to understand that if they've been playing on site X and then they've been playing on site Y, are the games actually the same? Or is that quite difficult for them to go and find? Is it hidden between 18 clicks away in the help section, hidden under a logo or something? And I think that that's really important to look at it. Phil, from your point of view, obviously you take this from a different angle. We talked a little bit about volatility earlier, and that obviously has an impact as well. Do you want to kind of briefly touch on that?
Yeah, so our clients are more focused on kind of the game results rather than the overall picture, which is obviously what Betsson's looking at. But when it comes to like newer slots which are pushed more heavily on the volatility side, like Big Time Gaming, No Limit City, the maximum win on San Quentin's 150,000x. If your hit rate on that is high and it's 96% and there's a 2,000x bonus buy, for small, medium operators like white labels, like what we provide to, that is sometimes very unstable on a best kind of explanation.
Yeah.
So if someone's betting €4 a spin and they're winning 150,000x, you need a hell of a lot of equity in your bank balance to start a white label now. So on that side, I kind of understand the RTP discussion. But
absolutely,
when it comes down to lowering just a blank everything of games, then I agree with Ciara, and it's absolute greed.
Absolutely, and I think it's educating, Joe, the players and our customers as well about it, and if it does get brought off, why we talk about it and having these open dialogues. Although I'm not sure that it is as transparent as we need it to be, and I think we should go a step further. Magnus, obviously you're looking at this from Joe from the supplier side, and obviously you guys have varying RTPs on your games. I mean, how has that evolved at Play and Go as the business has grown?
It hasn't really evolved. I mean, it's been there forever. We have the games are certified on a number of different RTP levels, and what Phil and Ciara said just underlines the need. We provide that as a tool that some of our customers might use in different ways, and they just described a couple of scenarios where it might be good. You know, you're a startup, you might have to mitigate some costs or mitigate some risk. Then using RTP can be one tool for that. You have increased costs, maybe for regulation that you need to address. Most of our customers use the RTP changes to fund jackpots outside of the game, basically. So the RTP for the player is the same, but the in-game RTP might be lowered, and then they move that money into a mystery jackpot or a leaderboard, or
of course. And I think when it's
my
done
point is
legitimately,
that
it's fine, right?
Yeah, it's a tool. It can be used in many different ways. And what we've seen, the only change that I am aware of, I've been here for 3 years, a bit more. The only change is that we did an experiment with one customer on 98% as well. That was outside of our normal RTP levels. Mm-hmm. So
understood.
Otherwise it's been pretty stable.
I guess for me, where it comes down to, I personally don't understand what the difference is in a casino shying away from showing the RTP of a slot, for example, versus the sportsbook shying away from showing you the odds on the horse race. Like I personally, from my very high level over on it, I don't see the difference. I mean, am I wrong here, Ciara?
I mean, I think, I've been really clear about it at Betsson. We want to be players first. We want to make sure that customer experience is key. While we do have a range of RTPs, I mean, we want to make sure that customer is protected and they feel that. So I think we do want to be transparent. And even if we did change our strategy to a position where we needed to change the RTPs, that's not something we'd hide in the bottom of a terms and conditions approach.
Absolutely. And I think that's what all of us across the industry understand, right, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between what we're going to do and what others have done in the past is I can only think of one site that openly put changes in RTPs on the site, which is jackpot.com. Mm-hmm. If you look at the big players, if you look at Video Slots, Las Vegas, Casumo, there's no mention anywhere. It doesn't say on the slot, you don't get a pop-up, there's no email, there's no place on the website. I just think that is the side that we should focus on rather than doing it, because if anybody can do it, then people are going to do it because it makes them more money. That's
absolutely.
The greed part.
And I think it's about transparency and really trying to build on the fact that we should be kind of looking at players first and also valuing us as an entertainment industry, because we are competing with your Netflix and your Amazons and your Disneys, and even scrolling on Amazon just to see if I want to go shopping today in 5 minutes as opposed to playing a slot. So we are competing with that. Do you think there'll be a long-term effect ultimately on the longevity of a slot if the RTP is being played at a lower level, for example, Magnus, versus if it's at the higher level?
I think, first of all, the RTP is calculated over 100 million rounds. So what people notice, you have to be a very specific type of player to notice RTP changes in the range. I mean, MGA allows everything above 92. And if you move in that space, you will not notice it as an individual player. You will notice the volatility. And you might think that is RTP. So, but when it comes to a game, a game will be popular if the game mechanics are good, if the graphics are good, if the quality is high, if everything is together as an entity, and it's enjoyable. It's not about if a multiplier is 6x or 7x. I don't think that is a decisive factor. there's probably a line somewhere where the game becomes unplayable.
Yeah.
But looking at the RTP levels that is allowed in MGA, I think that will be, it's doable to do great, enjoyable games in that range.
And we see some, apologies for stepping in, but we see quite a lot of benefits of that as well. I mean, a lot of our websites, we categorize our games, so specific themes, new games, exclusive games. But one of the themes that we look at in some of our regions is about value for money. And we choose games that have quite a low volatility and a fair RTP for customers. So we say if you are coming in to not win 150,000x, but you want a great casino experience and value for money from your €20 deposit, then these are the kind of games we think that you'd like to play. And I agree with Magnus. I think that, RTP isn't necessarily something a customer will feel the difference on or understand, but a lot of the shifts in our industry are tending to educate those customers about that. So on a customer facing piece, if you say this game is a 98% RTP, then customers try and learn about it. Or if you send an email out to your customers and you explain that you have lowered the RTP, but it is funding a jackpot, again, you're teaching them to understand that. And that's maybe not necessarily, we don't want to hide from customers, but sometimes the magic behind the myth isn't exactly something you want to bust either and lead on.
Yeah, exactly. And
so I would like to go back to that you said about informing when you compare to the odds. So
yes.
I have a theory there, and I don't know, but there is a praxis it probably comes from land-based, that RTP is not shown. And it's not only casino. If you buy a lottery ticket, or if you go to the postcode lottery, or if you play bingo, no bingo player knows the RTP of the bingo game.
No,
it's just not important. It's just not the praxis. So I'm sure there's an element more of that than ignorance or greed, if you like, from the operators that are not flaunting or not showing the RTP. It's just it hasn't been the praxis of
exactly.
the industry.
It hasn't been done before, right? And I think that's what we're trying to look at. What should we do to try and continue moving our industry forward and continue being as socially responsible and as intuitive with the players as we can, so that we are being more transparent. And I think that leads me quite nicely into kind of going next. But I mean, whose responsibility do we feel this transparency is? Are suppliers doing enough? Is it solely on the operators? I mean, obviously I'm a moderator today, but I obviously sit on the supplier side, so I'm quite happy that I get to kind of stay out of this debate today, and Magnus has taken the hot seat. But there is definitely that balance as to, is it purely down to operators, and do we have to just do what operators ask us to do because ultimately they pay our bills? Or is this our responsibility in order to move the industry forward and to have more information with players as suppliers? I mean, Phil?
Yeah, you missed one out. I think regulators have something to do with it as well.
Yes,
so
we know how much you
you.
love regulators as well, Phil.
I mean, they set the standards for everything we do.
Absolutely.
But if they're not setting standards for how we display data, display information, and give this feedback to players, then pretty much operators and suppliers can do whatever they want. I could change all our RTPs tomorrow with Magnus's help for play and go to 92%. No one's ever going to know unless they click the game.
Exactly. And it feels like regulators are
Despicable.
doing a lot of adding additional rules, obviously in the UK with the new rules that have come out over the last couple of weeks, and in Germany obviously with what's planning to happen there. But nobody seems to be looking at this particular point, and it may not be
actually Fiona, in UKGC have a pop-up.
Yes,
it is mandatory to, if you've played a game, I think I'm right now, don't take this to the bank, but I think it works like this. If you play the game once, the RTP changes, then there will be a
then
pop-up
you need to get
notifying
the pop-up.
you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
that
in the regulation.
Absolutely, and that should be something that MGA should be looking at doing as well, I think. And
are we sitting here asking for more regulation?
No, definitely not. I'll rein that back. Sorry.
I am.
I mean, Phil would like more fair and an open regulation.
Yeah, like 1984, but 2021.
No, but I think that has to only be fair. I mean, if you go to the supermarket and you buy the same thing over and over again, and then it's like a new recipe sticker, but you can't just change something. I don't think if you've played the same slot game every day for 4 months and not triggered RG flags, and then they just change it now that they know you're playing that game quite a lot. I just don't think that's right. I think that introducing lower RTP games is fine if that's part of your strategy and it's how you cope in regulated or competitive markets, or even newer markets that are predominantly land based. But I don't think that you can change in the back end something a customer played yesterday to today because you need more margin. I mean, we know long term, if a customer bets €100 and the margin was 4% and then it goes to 6%, you don't make €2 more per customer over the long term from that casino.
No, exactly. So I guess going it back, if you were to say, I mean, who do you think it is the responsibilities down to? Is it suppliers, is it operators, or is it more collaboration between them both so that we can all push transparency on this topic and really engage it?
You're the supplier.
I mean, I think it comes down to doing what's right for the customer, which everybody can do. I mean, I completely agree with Magnus. Magnus is a leading supplier in our industry, and if customers are asking for something and he can supply it, then, you know, they've not done anything wrong there. I think, you know, I would hate to think that there are casinos out there that are showing VIPs and casual customers a different RTP on the games. You know, if you're a UK casino and you're giving a lower RTP to your sports customers because you don't think they'll understand it versus your engaged slot space in Sweden, I genuinely don't think that's right.
No,
you know, and it will affect the long-term, you know, longevity of your business and your customers. And I think they are short-sighted decisions to make today to hit, you know, Q1 targets.
If it's any other industry, like if you're ordering a Domino's pizza and from one place you get less cheese, you're never going to go to that place again. If players start figuring out that some sites and some casinos, even on a wider basis, offer better games, it's where they're going to go. So then the casinos that have lowered the RTPs are the ones that are going to lose out because they've done it so sneakily, in a way.
If you've done
in
it
a
to
nice
hit
way.
bottom line and not to fund something, you know, genuinely player facing, like a jackpot. And I understand
Jackpots
why you
make
do
sense.
that, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not arguing that point. I just think there is arguments for and against RTPs, and I'm happy to keep going about that. But, you know, whether you're for or against it, how you do it is going to affect the reputation of our whole industry. I mean, we've been fighting compliance and arguing for fair compliance, but if there's regulators out there today that find out people are swapping RTPs on games based on whether customers are up or down, then that's game over as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly, and we have done so much in the last 10 years to really change the perception of our industry and to really push it forward. And we're I think a lot of companies are trying to put themselves more as an entertainment business. Obviously, we've seen GVC change their name to Entain. I think that that's really interesting and should be where we're pushing the boundaries. And I think that there is a sustainable model to have for us as long as we are being transparent. I mean, it's a very difficult question to pinpoint, but where do we think that it is sustainable in terms of the level of RTP? And obviously that's an open question because volatility impacts that. But Magnus, if we were to try and say, okay, what's the best strategy to go forward and try and engage with all of our partners on it, what would you say?
First of all, on the responsibility, I never commented on that. We have to bear in mind that it's not so much about what we as a supplier want to do. It's more about what we're allowed to do. I mean, with GDPR, with other regulation, getting involved in B2C like activities, like forcing pop-ups or information out on websites on clients, I don't think that's doable, even if we should want to. So I again believe that our role is to provide the tools and make sure that
Absolutely.
we help our customers be compliant and competitive and all that. But to go beyond that, I think that's not for us to decide.
And it's exactly, it's not our place to do that, right? It's stepping in a little bit too much if we were to do that.
Yeah, and then the more interesting stuff is the trust and retaining customers. I think you have to be transparent. We urge our customers to be transparent on stuff like this. I think that's always a good idea. That's why I'm here. And I also think that if you use, it doesn't really matter exactly. If you are around 95% in MGA, up or down a bit, I think the trick here is how do you use that money? Do you provide good service? Do you have great support? Do you have recommendation engine that gives me great games to play? Do you is it easy to withdraw and deposit money? Those things, if you use your money, your margin, if you like, to invest in customer retention activities like that, you can probably don't have to care so much about RTP.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
That's just my layman's. I mean, I'm in no way in a position to tell people how to run a casino. I'm just speaking more as a player here, actually.
But that's standard commerce principles. I mean, you know, on the high street, people are willing to pay more for an item in their corner shop than they are in a supermarket because of ease and convenience. And we see that with sportsbook odds as well, as people choose price and product and promotions at different levels of elasticity.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a really good example of it, because on the sports betting side of things, particularly in the UK market, I mean, some people are so far apart in terms of the odds. Yes, hundreds and thousands of customers still choose that company. I'm not going to name any names, but because they like their app, they like their experience, they like how they're treated as a player. So it's very much about having that and looking at it as a whole picture, and not just saying, oh, let's have lower RTPs or let's have higher RTPs. And as I said, I think we need to make it clear, none of us are saying that having varied RTPs is a bad thing. Then we all just want to really push the transparency so that we can really get better as an industry and really make sure that the players that ultimately we all serve are really getting the best possible experience that they possibly can.
Yeah, where it goes to, where the money goes to is a big thing. So Absolutely. If you're funding that kind of thing, but then there's certain, again, I won't mention it, but there's certain tier one.
I mean, you're
companies.
being very, very quiet, Phil. I mean, honestly, the guys on this chat are really upset that you're not being more argumentative on this topic. So
fuck it, let's go for it. So you've got sites like Leo Vegas who have Blue Ribbon Jackpot. They're saying that the money that they save on RTP goes to that, but that's not true, because they're charging a side bet off the actual bet of 10 cents, which goes to the jackpot, and that jackpot pays out 70%. So the math on this was done for me by someone else, but in a month and a half, they made €1 million off running that jackpot, and they've seeded 5. So once they get back that 5, they're basically free rolling forever with a secondary RTP income, which is below MGA standard. I don't get how that's legal.
And I think, I'm not going to bash anybody, but I think I'll go in there. But I think what you can say about someone like Leo, for example, is they do invest hugely in their marketing and in their players. And they've rolled out, for example, their global marketing campaign this week, which I think is super cool, and obviously takes sizable amounts of investment in that as well. So I don't think that there's a blanket of, if they've done this, then it's necessarily the most negative thing. So I'll put that out there to kind of rein it back a little bit. But similarly, I also understand what you're saying in terms of the perception of that and how it looks to people who really dig into it.
Yeah, because if people find out the numbers, they're not going to play it, because why would you contribute to a 70% RTP when you can play Mega Moolah, which is, 88, 89, depending?
Absolutely.
I mean, if other providers like Red Tiger Jackpots, that's run at very minimal RTP for Red Tiger. They make their money by offering 92 and 94 as standard, and you have to ask for 96.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of running it.
It's different business models. I mean, everyone has them. I mean, as I said, I'm here to moderate and not to really kind of push our point, but at Push, we are set. We have a set RTP. We do not have varying RTPs, and it's something that obviously we'll continue monitoring and looking at. But as a business, our RTP is our RTP.
Oh, you don't need to change RTPs. Jam and Jars
which
takes
is why
everybody's
which
money.
is why I lose all my money in Jam and Jars and Razor Shark. So I can't say it's very helpful for my bank balance. Good. I'm glad it's not just me.
No, I know that, but I just think that the argument that we've had to lower our RTPs so we can make great marketing campaigns. If I take your example, Fiona, I mean, quite honestly, I'm not sure I'll take that either. I mean, the market is more competitive, yes, but I mean, if you're an established tier 1 operator and you've been on TV and you've had great marketing campaigns, you didn't need to lower your RTP last month to afford that. Absolutely. You know, we do have more tax, we do have more regulation, but that's part of global expansion and growing. And quite honestly, if you can't afford to run an online casino and you don't want to take the risk of paying out 150,000, you know, X, then, you know, I mean, you're trying to get 50,000 customers in who lose €50 each every month and keep you bankrolled. So I think there are pros and cons for that, but I fundamentally, if one of our regional teams came to us and said we missed our budget by 4% last month, we're thinking of dropping all the RTPs, I mean, I think that's ignorance. Yeah. That's not greed or necessity. That's just a fundamental misunderstanding of how the business works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, from where we're going, I mean, how do you think we build on this? I mean, how do you think that we, as an industry and as a collective group, how do you think that we kind of better and champion this to make it more transparent, and for operators who maybe are on that side of blanket just dropping RTPs to become more engaged? Because obviously none of them are here today for probably pretty obvious reasons, but what do you think we can do as an entire industry to kind of push that forward and to try and get the point across?
It needs help from everybody, in my opinion. So you need people like Play and Go, you need Marcus, you need big operators, Betsson, Casumo, you need smaller like white label companies, Soft Swiss, us, Every Matrix, but most importantly you need somebody on top of it setting parameters and guidelines.
Are you asking for more regulation again,
yes.
Phil? I mean, Magnus, what are we going to do here with him?
Save me, Magnus.
Magnus, jump in and save him before he starts asking for even more regulation.
Someone get the MJ on the phone.
It's a difficult one. I'm not sure that everyone's going to side with you.
Someone will somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to manage to miraculously get the regulator on our side with this one.
I think, having this level of transparency in this conversation and letting them continue, and maybe with different people and from different angles, that won't hurt.
No,
that
absolutely.
And I'm a strong believer in the forces of the market. I think, if you run a casino or you do a supplier job correct, then you will at some point prevail. And I think if Push chooses one strategy and Play and Go another, that's really good in one way, because that gives the operators a choice.
Absolutely.
And it's not one size fits all anywhere. So
exactly. I mean, we're such a huge industry. It's never going to be one size fits all. And we look at markets like South America and the US, for example, which everyone, it's their favorite buzzword. And they are used to lower RTPs because they are used to land-based. So there's nothing wrong with having some games much lower. I mean, some of them can get a little bit low for my liking, but I don't think that that's the argument here. It's about, okay, let's have those, but let's also have our traditionally high RTPs and not just change them overnight on a player, but educate the player on how a variety of games can be appealing and entertaining to them.
I miss old slot games like Angel versus Devil from Ash Gaming, where you could choose the volatility of your slot game as you played. Giving the player amazing. That level of choice.
I think you just miss being in a casino at full stop, to be honest. We've all been locked in for a year at this point, and although the casinos on Malta are amazing, I think all of us have missed a little bit of Vegas and G2E, to be honest. So I think we're all looking forward to getting back there and having those casinos steal all of our money instead. Steal's the wrong word, you know what I mean.
Acquire.
Acquire.
I think I can go back and try to save Phil here on the regulation side. I think
Please.
Thank you, Magnus.
What we all want is regulation to be intelligent and smart and protecting players and without destroying the entertainment value.
Absolutely. And part of conversations like this, right?
Yeah. And I think there is an element of us probably need to talk more open with regulators to inform them on and helping them maybe or guiding them or giving our opinion at least on what direction this should move in, because we know a lot and there's a value to be added from us to regulation that could serve a purpose. And having a discussion on transparency in general, not only RTP, there's other stuff probably.
Absolutely.
It's something we could do, or maybe should do, as an industry.
And do the right thing, right? You shouldn't need regulation. I mean, if your company strategy is have games at an RTP of 92 or 98, that's fine. I think my biggest objection is to companies that will switch games in and out, to manage their P&L, like throttling the lever. I mean, if people start doing that, every myth about the casino being rigged will be true, right? And you shouldn't need regulation to tell you that that's the wrong thing to do.
If you read any forum, the casino's rigged, they're changing the games. It's not possible, but you look at the MJ for an example.
I mean, I get a lot of requests from people saying, can you please verify that you haven't rigged this game? I'm like, trust me, if I could rig Jam and Jars to pay out to me, I definitely would, but it is impossible.
4 jars, 20x and some strawberries. Thanks.
Yes, please.
No, but look at the MJ, for example. You've got a 49-page document about how and when to ask for KYC and source of wealth. You have 2 lines on RTP.
Yeah.
And no lines about changing it. There's nothing illegal. It just makes no sense.
And I
One
think
of the perceptions is that you release a game with a really high RTP. Well, you release a game that pays everybody out. And then
the
over
React
time,
Tunes opinion.
Yes.
Everyone said React Tunes was 100%
You
just
know,
for Marcus,
but-
and then it went down to 90 apparently.
But I mean, if people start doing that, then that's the case. I mean, 10 years ago in this industry, you know, if you were a decent customer and you phoned customer services and you said you needed help paying your mortgage this month, you know, there were operators out there that genuinely would help you cover that.
Yeah.
That's not the business we are anymore. But this is why the UK is as strict now as it is.
absolutely.
I mean, if there's not regulation preventing people from releasing a game, changing the RTP, changing it per player, using segmentation, then quite frankly, we're all going to be in a lot of trouble very soon if people exploit that, because it is the wrong thing both for our industry and mostly for our players.
And it
A
is,
lot of the things that mentioned is you know straight illegal that you just said, and all of the things would be captured by the test labs.
exactly, and we've moved a long way from that. We've really progressed our industry so far over the last 10 years, and we've really managed to change people's perception of us and really push us, as I keep saying, as being more in an entertainment space and competing with other forms of quick snacking entertainment. But if we do this, we will set ourselves back drastically, and it will have an impact not just for suppliers or operators, but everybody.
But volatility is a big thing here. I mean, I was playing a game internally; it's not released yet, and one day I was winning all the time, and next day there was nothing. I had to call the math people and ask, "Did you do anything with the game?
what did you do to the game overnight?"
So I go into that trap as well. You know, I think it's volatility. It's that is what you notice.
And particularly when we have so many, I mean, obviously we are known for our volatile games, and obviously we get angry emails about just how volatile they are sometimes, but that is what a certain type of player loves, because in having those volatile games, okay, you can leave the for your spins with 0, a loss, thank you very much, all games, or you can have 150x, and obviously that there is that potential there. And I think that's why some players play. I don't really want to win 10x, I'm really greedy, I'm sorry. I don't want 100x either, I want 50,000x or 100,000x. But that in itself breeds a really great type of player, and those things affect each other. But if, as you say, if someone goes in and starts messing with the RTPs and changing out, Joe, the game's all of a sudden from one day to the next, then that's not going to continue growing the faith that players have in us as an industry.
But also manage your shop window, right? If you're a shop in a disadvantaged area of a city, then you don't have really super expensive shampoos and luxury items for sale, and if you go somewhere else then you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there shouldn't be casinos out there anymore that still have one size fits all on content.
Yeah,
and if you know your players and you use your data for the right reason, then you know these are the players looking for those kind of games, and you show them those games. And if you're an average sportsbook customer who bets on outright markets, then you show them games that they're not going to do 15 spins and win nothing, because then they will think the whole thing's rigged and they'll never come back.
Yeah.
And you only get one chance to show those customers what experience they can have.
It's having a really personalised operator, really and truly, and I think that's the goal. That the dream goal is for everyone to truly be able to have a personalised experience for every player. I'm not sure anyone has it completely perfect yet, but we're certainly working in that way. And that's what we should all be trying to embrace and build on with it. And that's when bearing RTPs absolutely work, for sure.
Sounds like AI.
Yeah, imagine that.
Imagine if the first time you ever played roulette, you played American roulette.
Oh, and then you moved to Europe and you were like, whoa. Yeah, that 2.7% RTP change is huge though on roulette.
Or you just always played perfect blackjack.
Oh, that one's easier. But no, American roulette online is... People still play it. I am so confused as to why some people think because there's 2 zeros it's better.
We're coming close to the end of our topic. We're not quite finished yet, but I guess I'll put it back to you guys. If you were to kind of sum up how we should move this forward, what would be how you would like to leave our audience with your opinion on this final topic? Start with Magnus.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick to the B2B side, and I think we will, you know, we look at this as one tool in a toolbox. There's many of them, and we provide this as a service, and we will continue to make sure that our customers can use this to be compliant and be competitive.
Perfect.
And I don't see, and if there's need for transparency, we'll do whatever is needed to assist.
Absolutely. Well, actually, guys, Magnus got the last word. You two are just going to have to leave it for our next panel and our next day. Everybody, thank you so much for watching this panel. It was really good to chat to you all about it and get some real insights on it. Magnus, thank you for dialing in. It was really good to see you. Bill, thank you for joining. And Ciara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.